Welcome, everyone, and thank you for joining us today. My name is Jennifer Vizentine, and I am part of the modernization team here at Inventus Operations Management. Since October 24th, we've conducted a modernization-themed webinar every week. Today's topic is a holistic approach to modernization, plan to execute, and execute the plan. With us today is Brian Freer, modernization technical consultant. Brian has 32 years of experience with Inventus in application engineering, technical management, technical consulting, and business analysis. He has collaborated with many clients to design and implement systems that deliver reliability and performance. Before I hand it over to Brian, I would like to remind everyone that all lines will be muted, but you will have an opportunity at the end to submit your questions. And with that, I'll hand it over to Brian.
Thanks, Jennifer. Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the Modernization Holistic Approach seminar. This morning, we're going to talk about the Inventus modernization approach. To start off, I'd like to tell just a little brief story from my personal life that's tied into modernization. I've inherited an old house in upstate New York that's 150 years old, and my wife and I plan to retire there someday. And so we started last year to think about what we needed to do to get this house up to snuff to retire in. And it wasn't just in this 150-year-old house that's been in the family for 100 years of just remodeling a bathroom or replacing some plumbing fixtures. It turned out that it needs a real revamp. We need to replace some infrastructure. We need to get the place prepared for the needs of the 21st century, not the 19th century when it was built. So we contracted an architect and an engineer to come in and basically talk to us about our needs with the house and develop a plan, drawings, and since then we've put in an entirely new septic system. We've put in a new well. We're remodeling the inside, putting on an addition, having downstairs bathrooms in a house that originally had an outhouse out in the backyard. So that's my personal modernization project, but it points to the approach that we're going to talk about today with the Inventus modernization program. It's a holistic approach to modernization. It's the development of a plan for you to execute and then moving into the execution of that plan. Today's session will basically accomplish four main objectives. Number one, we're going to talk about what modernization really is. The word modernization means a lot of different things to a lot of different people. So we'll talk about the definition of modernization. Then, what value do you get from modernizing? Then we're going to look at what the Inventus approach is, and so if you wanted to engage Inventus in a modernization effort, how would you do that? And finally, we'll look at the components of a modernization assessment. This is the main focus of the modernization program, is to get in and do a modernization assessment for our clients. So, what does modernization really mean? Since taking this job on early this year, we've seen that to some customers it means as little as replacing an old transmitter with a new one, or refurbishing a DCS, or doing some major process revamps to get process reliability and meet the flexibility demands that they have in their marketplace. So it can mean a whole lot of things. What we're going to look at today is that there's four main drivers that we're seeing from our customers in terms of their need to modernize. The first is stuff is getting old. DCSs that were put in, IA systems that were put in, some of them 25 years ago. I started working on IA in April of 1987, so that's a long, long time ago when I had no gray hair. But some of that stuff is starting to get really, really old, and so some of that stuff is at risk of failing. The next is you need to build a foundation of your technology to meet the demands not just of today, but of tomorrow. As things change, you're going to want to have the flexibility to maintain your investment, to keep things current, and to meet the needs that your business is going to have in the future. We want to create new value. Systems are integrated both vertically and horizontally throughout your enterprise. How do we do that? How do we make disparate things talk to each other? There's a real need to do that. Information that exists in one system or in one place can be vital and critical and helpful to be used elsewhere. And then finally, as we've moved to the computer age, everything seems to be tied together. And either for fun or for malintent, there's risks of security issues to keep things safe, to make sure that only those authorized to do things can get in and do things to your system. So security in the 21st century is going to be key. So these main drivers are the things that we look to address in our customers' context when we do modernization. So risk mitigation of obsolete hardware failure. Like I said, IA's been out for 25 years now. It's lasted a long time, but some of the stuff that was brand new in 1987, we can no longer make or replace. So these particular, here's just a list of devices that are on our life cycle roadmap that are obsolete. We can't get parts to replace these things. This is just the IA portion of parts, but other systems, our competitor systems, everybody's got the same problem. There's things that were put out there that are still running 25, 30 years ago, and now we can't get parts to replace them. I even find some of that in my old house that I'm working on. Okay, so stuff is failing. Now, our life cycle product people have done a great job giving us a roadmap of how long we think we can support some of our products. So there's other products that are moving into what we call the lifetime product phase, that we can support these things as long as we can. We visited a customer for an assessment just a couple weeks ago where they put FBMs in 1987, and they're maintaining spares of those because they know that those are in lifetime and going to move to the obsolete phase over the next couple of years. The other piece is that some of the operating systems that we operate on are no longer going to be supported going into the future. Things like Windows NT and Solaris 8 and earlier that are still out there running may not be available to be supported in the future. One of the things that we're doing now as a solution to that is we're looking at virtualization, where virtual machines can be put on servers to emulate these older operating systems, so you can get some more life cycle out of those as the hardware to support those is no longer available. So obsolete equipment is definitely a risk as things have been run for a longer time and without being replaced. So we need to look at a roadmap of when things are phasing out and where things are going. Next, we want to build a foundation of technology that enables business improvements today and into the future. Here we have some great technologies. We won't go a lot into the technologies today because we're focused on the approach, but things like Foxborough Control software and Orchestra system platform basically are a great enabler that allows us to tie a lot of things in together. Virtualization of workstations and older style servers that we can't buy hardware to operate on anymore is going to add some flexibility to our systems. Our new 200 series FBMs with hard integration and field device manager allow us to gain some of the assets and value that comes from having asset information in our field devices. You know, cybersecurity, the software and hardware platforms are now allowing us to segregate our systems and to provide pathways into them. So the technologies are there that allow the applications to do things like real-time alert systems. This is different than alarming. Alarming, the operator responds to things going wrong. In real-time alert systems, we can add artificial intelligence to warn the operators before things go wrong so they can take actions before things go bad. Virtual workstations, again, I think are going to be a huge wave in the future because workstations are things that get replaced frequently as hardware platforms of PCs change. Instrument asset management systems. Again, instruments, for every signal there's a device, and that's a huge investment, and it's something that you want to maintain and have information around. And enforcing the electronic security perimeters by utilizing the technology. So the pieces are there to build the building blocks for the future, and it's just the applications and solutions you can put on that that can help you drive to meet the needs that your business is going to have into the future. Next, you have disparate systems. There's PLCs, there's different DCSs, there's different layers of the DCS, the I/O, the control, the operator interface. But these are also, there's also the integration horizontally across your plant. In each plant, we see disparate systems because point solutions were put in to solve particular problems in the past. Now, each of those are growing older at different rates, becoming supportable or unsupportable at different times. And how do we integrate all that stuff in? How do we tie it together to give the information that's needed? And vertically is even more important. As the boardroom moves closer down to the plant floor and top-level management wants to see real-time data, how do we integrate in ERP systems and enterprise asset management systems? The technology is there to allow this, but we have to have a plan to tie that together. I can remember back about 12 years ago, I got visited by a corporate executive from Oracle who was working on an account with a major chemical customer. And he says, I don't know what Foxborough systems are, but I know my customer has lots of them. So I explained what our DCSs did, the information it had, and he was there saying, there's lots of good stuff down there. We just need to figure out how we can pull that up and use it. Well, it's 12 years have gone by. The technology is there to do that, but we need to develop a plan for how to integrate that into the business systems. We can do it. It's what we want to do with it to add value to our customers. And then finally, we live in a post-9/11 world. Cybersecurity is a real issue, particularly right now with our power customers. The NERC standards have been developed to basically protect the power grid. Cyber attacks against the power grid are a huge risk. So we want to be able, we have a consulting practice of cybersecurity that's done some phenomenal work that's basically put a fence around our systems to protect them from any threats that might be coming from the outside world. So those four components are the real drivers for what modernization is doing in the industry. So right now we're going to take just a brief minute to do a little survey. In your experience and what you're working with right now, what drivers, which of the four modernization drivers is impacting your business climate the most? Is it the risk mitigation from aging equipment? Is it the technical foundation for business improvement? Or is it a tighter integration of disparate systems? Or maybe the need for security? So if you could use your voting keys and just kind of plug in what you think on that, we'll take a moment and then we'll move on. So based on the results, it's looking like a lot of people have lots of risks from aging equipment. Okay, so what's the value? Again, the value is going to be to meet your present operating requirements, but also be adaptable for future needs and future requirements. And also you want to have a plan that basically lets you know what you need to invest in your infrastructure, when you need to invest it, so you can have a long-term financial plan. So when we look at the value in doing a modernization, the Inventus modernization program, we wanted to develop short-range and long-term automation plans that are part of a business plan. They're aligned with the business objective of our customer. We first start, the starting point for the initiative is to deal with we basically focus on the site level. We want to talk about the site initiatives and strategies and goals. What's the site trying to accomplish? We also want to take where the site is headed and align it with the Inventus roadmap of products and solutions. We want to say, here's where Inventus has been, here's what you have, and here's where we're going into the future. This has caused us to put together longer-term roadmaps, where product roadmaps used to be 2 to 3 years. We're now looking at 5 and 10-year product roadmaps. And basically, based on customer requirements, we're able to influence where that roadmap goes in the future as well. We want to maximize the business value beyond just the replacement of obsolete equipment. We dealt with one major chemical customer just last summer where the risk of failure of their gateways was a huge risk. So they determined that there was an operational financial risk of failure on those gateways that was a high priority. So the justification was there just based on the failure of that equipment to replace it. However, sometimes replacement of the equipment, like with another customer we're working with, it's not broke, so why worry about it? It's not impacting operations today, but when it does, there's going to be a major impact. So sometimes we have to look for other values and other return on investment to justify the expenditure to replace that obsolete equipment. So we want to determine the business value of any solution that we want to put in. And if there's not business value, there may not be a reason to do it today. Right? And we want to support the client's budgeting, funding, and purchasing processes. We want to basically help our customers justify what they plan to spend and develop that long-range financial plan so they know what they're going to spend into the future. So what's the approach? Well, if you wanted to do a modernization, how would you go about it? And what we have is a 3-tiered approach. The first tier is where you've got some older stuff, you've got a point solution problem that you want to solve in your plant, and you would contact your client sales executive, your CSE as we call him, and he would come out or she would come out and deal with solving your problem and proposing an Inventus solution. In Tier 2, most of the modernizations we get involved with start as a Tier 1. A customer has a need for a point solution, and then in further conversation we see that maybe there's another solution that fits, or maybe there's another problem that needs to be solved. And that would move us into a Tier 2 modernization assessment. A Tier 2 is basically a mini assessment. It would be done with your CSE and a member of the modernization team. It could be a plant visit. It could be a phone call. Typically, it lasts a couple hours to a day, and what we would do is talk about the problems you're trying to solve, the results you're trying to achieve, and we do what we would call a mini assessment, and you'll see what the assessment is as we go further in the presentation. But we do a mini assessment and come up with a short-term plan and a long-term vision for what you should be doing to solve your problems and gain the results you're looking to achieve. Tier 3 is the comprehensive plan. This is where a business justification is needed. You'd contact your CSE, they would engage our modernization team, and we would engage any technical experts that would be needed to participate in the assessment. The role of the customer in this is to get their site leadership, their site management, operations management, plant management, financial management engaged to participate in the process. The Tier 3 again, we're going to spend a 2 or 3 day visit at the site talking with key leaders in the business, operations people, looking at strategies, objectives, and plans, and trying to put that together into a cohesive package moving forward. The next survey question, which tier of modernization effort do you see the need for in your organization? Is it a tier 1, our CSE can address the solutions needed for most of our issues? Or tier 2, we have a technical plan, but it could be reviewed? Tier 3, we want to align our plan with our corporate plant management objectives. So take a moment to vote on your survey keys. So based on the results, we see that 67% have our CSE addressing the issues, and 33% say we have a technical plan, but it needs to be reviewed. Okay. So now we're going to talk a little bit about the modernization assessment. These have been pretty enjoyable to participate in. It's kind of like going out and doing technical archaeology, because you get to go out and see a lot of different stuff that was done in a lot of different industries and a lot of different plants in the automation industry. In 2009, Invensys commissioned an outside party to survey our customers and determine who has plans for modernizing into the future, who's putting together formal long-term plans for what they're going to do with their technical infrastructure. And the results were really surprising in that 60% of our customers had no long-term plan, and 10% didn't know. Only 23% said, yes, we have a current plan and we're working our plan to modernize our equipment. So there's a need there. It's not just, I mean, over the last 30 years, things have gotten more and more short-term focused, but there's an aging infrastructure that needs to have a longer-term vision put on. So we're taking the approach of what we call a modernization assessment approach. What we will do is collaborate for a 2 to 3 day workshop at your site. We develop a long-range modernization plan that would help support your budgeting process and basically apply technical solutions to meet your needs. We want to align the modernization plan with your initiatives and strategies. So that's the real key focus. The first key is, what are you trying to accomplish with your business? We want to look for opportunities and mitigate risks. We also want to put hard numbers and benefits to solutions that you're looking for, right? And we want to modernize in multiple technology areas. It's not just the replacement of DCS. Where else can we go? What other places add value? One of the keys is that there's often surprises that we find as we start to address the strategies and initiatives and talk about the existing problems. So the next 2 slides basically are the toolbox that we bring to the table. These are Invensys solutions, but we don't start here. These are things that once we determine what your problems, what your desired results are, that we would apply these where needed. If they're not needed, they don't apply. Every assessment we've seen, there's been something where they thought it needed to be done, and we found out, you know what, that can wait. That doesn't need to happen right now, or that solution's not quite what's needed. So the key is, these are things that are available to use, but not all of these will apply in every situation. The key areas, and these are focus areas that we drive in, are upgrades or migrations. There's technical solutions, and we have a whole plethora of those, and we've got some really, really neat stuff to do migrations, to do upgrades, and our product people have done a great job with that. Safety lifecycle, we've got a strong team in those products that go through from HAZOPs and LOPAs all the way to SIS validation. We have an excellent team in turbo machinery controls and applications. Our cybersecurity team we talked about earlier does some really great things. So these are areas that we can focus on, and then, of course, advanced applications. And these are advanced applications both horizontally across your plant floor platform and vertically on up into your business infrastructure. So these are the solutions that we have, and we're not going to spend a whole lot of time talking on solutions today because these are going to actually be applied in step 4 of the modernization process. So some of the key considerations that we want to have going into the modernization assessment is what's the duration of the plan? Are you looking for a 3-year plan, a 5-year plan, a 10-year plan? We want to know turnaround schedules. Turnarounds are basically downtimes when you're not making money, so we want to take advantage of that time to fit things in, build the infrastructure that we need so that we can take advantage of the other solutions that we're going to put on top of it. Other constraints, what site resources, what capabilities do you have at site? And then we want to get into some financial information. What are the hurdle rates? What's the current budget? What's your current budget cycle? What's some of the economic information that you have? What's your cost of fuels? What's your cost of energy? What's the cost of downtime? We want to get some critical financial information so that we can calculate benefits from the various risks and solutions that would be applied. And, you know, if funding's available this year for solutions that have acceptable ROIs, you know, what hurdle do you need to get over to be able to justify a project? So our team that we put together to do this would be a lead modernization consultant, a technical consultant, subject matter experts as needed, and would be an ROI consultant. So somebody's going to focus just on the numbers so that we can put together a good cost-benefit analysis so you can judge what needs to be done and when it needs to be done. The methodology is basically a 6-step process that starts up there at the top at the 12 o'clock position with strategies and initiatives, moves through clockwise in the various steps, and then turns out with some definitive and budgetary proposals along with a long-range roadmap of what needs to be done and when. We would go through this process once and then come back annually and revisit it and adjust it as required. So we'd start with strategies and initiatives. This is the key place. This is where we'd want your plant management, your operations management folks to come in and tell us, hey, what are we trying to do? Are we trying to debottleneck? Are we trying to improve quality? Are we trying to be safer? Those are the key. And typically there's going to be 3 or 4 initiatives. Most of the time they're on posters that are hanging around the plant. But again, it's good to have the management people come in and let us know what these are. Let us know where their problems are. Let us know the results that they're trying to achieve for the future. The next step is to identify and prioritize key issues. Again, this is a place where, what are we trying to drive? One place to look at is operational excellence. Are we looking to get excellence in control? That means we want to minimize unscheduled downtime, obsolete or unsupported technology. Again, this is a key area that we're hearing in just about every assessment we do. People excellence, you know, skill sets. How do I get the right people that have the right skills to do the jobs that I have? I've got lots of folks getting a little bit older that know some things and can do some things, and how do I capture that knowledge that's in their head so that I have that when they go into retirement? The aging workforce is one that's come up in every assessment. Need to increase productivity. We want to get more. You know, every company wants to do more with less. So how do I get people to do the right things at the right times to get the value I need out of them? Asset excellence. How do I minimize my maintenance costs? How do I do predictive maintenance? In environment and safety, how do I mitigate those risks? Environment and safety shows up again in every assessment. So we hear along the issues that we're seeing with our customers out there that there's some major themes along operational excellence that people are looking to achieve. So some of the issues that might arise out of this are, things that you're looking to improve on the left-hand side with the up arrows: reliability, utilization, yield, functionality, safety, agility, visibility to plan, track costs. Other things, you drive down energy consumption, reduce off-spec product, reduce unscheduled downtime, reduce inventory, get rid of obsolete equipment. So these are issues that would rise to the table. We discuss these, and again, this is in the first day of the assessment, and we'd be getting these issues out, and it's amazing how quickly they come out. Somebody will say, we got a problem with this, or we're trying to achieve this, and the discussion just starts to go. And then what we do, the next step, is we fill out what's called a business opportunity worksheet. This is where we'd come up with a list of the issues, and we would prioritize them in a rank order of which is the most important. And once they're listed out, there's some discussion in the prioritization, and sometimes it's a surprise as to which is really the top priority issue. So you can see here on the business opportunity worksheet, there's 5 issues listed on the left-hand side in the blue boxes. They're prioritized in a priority from 1 to 5. Then what we would do is we'd take each issue in order, and we'd look at evidence of the problem that exists. What's the current state? Current state, if it's a problem, something that's not quite right today that we want to make better, and we'd come up with evidence of that problem. In this case, information does not, the first top priority item, which is number 1 there, lack right time info to optimize plant performance. The problem evidence is info does not facilitate decisions on a day-to-day and long-term operation. We're missing targets on plant objectives, variability of quality and cost of being to 2 main ones, okay? So that evidence supports that issue, and then we talk about, well, what's the impact of that problem? And here, the customer defined, and this is from an actual case, the customer defined that there's a $32 to $48 million impact of that issue over the next 2 years. The variability of quality, there's a $40 to $60 million impact over the next 2 years, right? The next step is results. Results are future states. These are good things that you want to accomplish. Problems are bad things you want to overcome. Results are good things that you want to achieve in the future. So here they've come up with information needs to support business agility, so there's some flexibility that if they had it for spot market sale, they could come up with a benefit of close to $660 million over the next 2 years. So what we have now is we have issues, evidence, and impact that basically allows us to start to frame together solutions and plans for our customers. So the next step is to go back to that myriad of solutions that Inventus has and start to target those in and see where they fit and place them on a solutions roadmap to solve the issues that were identified, that have evidence and have impact. With that, we come to our third and final survey question. 2/3 of our customers in the research said they don't have a long-term plan. What is the current level of planning in your organization? Is it 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, or 5 years? Well, 100% said 5 years. 11% voted. Okay. And the final step is to develop the plan. Here is where we would put together a roadmap of the issues, impact, issues, evidence, impact, and the potential solutions. And discuss this again at the final day of the assessment, the final afternoon. We would typically sit down with the site management people that participated and present to them the plan. This is definitely really the most fun part of the assessment is to sit down and come together and almost collaboratively see where the impact is of applying solutions to the real issues and seeing a cohesive plan. This is a kind of an overview of a roadmap that we did for a power generation customer. You can see, obviously, they had some I/O and FDM processors, DCS upgrade stuff that needed to happen. That's going to start happening in 2013. There's the application of the FCS software that's going to happen in the 2013 to 2014 timeframe. There's some turbine controls where overspeed trip is going to get them some benefits. Smart firing, some optimization and advanced control. They want to manage their field devices, and you can see how these solutions are just laid out in an overall timeline roadmap to meet the issues that were identified by the customer that are aligned with their strategy. So then finally, the last step in the process is where we would go and put together some budgetary proposals or definitive proposals for the short term. Typically where we start, again, is a point solution of replacing some obsolete equipment. What we've seen in every assessment is the justification for that project is made more solid through the assessment process. The second thing we would see is other things that were new discoveries that came out of the modernization assessment. And we would put together roadmaps of plans to do those. Here's just an example of some potential benefits. This is from an actual assessment that was done for a power generation customer. We've removed some of the financial data because of confidentiality, but here's just some benefits you can see from the issues that were identified. Improving the heat rate by reducing excess air and distributing oxygen and CO uniformly can give them a 0.3 to 0.5% impact on their production. So as you look at that, then we say, okay, what impact do the various solutions that we have on our roadmap impact each of those? And we put together a grid, and along with the financial information that the customer shared with us that's not given here, we would come back with a payback period. And this customer's payback period was 24 months. If it was a 24-month payback, they're willing to go to bat to fund it. So here you've got a roadmap of solutions juxtaposed against the customer's issues, along with expected benefits and expected payback. Here's just another example of the same thing. You've got the customer's issues over on the right that are part of the pie chart and the value that you could get in return for that, along with the payback period and how long it happens. And so it's just kind of a pictorial representation of how the Invensys solutions align with the customer's objectives and the financial impact of those. So with that, I want to thank you for your time. Hopefully you've got a better picture now of the Invensys modernization approach, and we'll open it now to any questions or comments.
Thanks, Brian. This is Jennifer again. Yes, we would like to open it up to questions, so please take a moment to submit your questions to the chat box. Brian, we did actually get one during the presentation, so I'm going to go ahead and shoot that over to you. Question is, what does an assessment cost?
What does an assessment cost? Well, monetarily, nothing. But what we do ask is we're making an investment of our team and our subject matter experts to come to site and have a discussion with your plant personnel. And so what we would ask in return is that you'd engage your plant management and that we could get a couple hours of their time on the first day and a couple hours of their time on the back end. Number one, to discuss strategies and initiatives on the first day and to review how our plan meets those strategies and initiatives on the last day.
Great. Thanks, Brian. Another question. Can you give examples of some of your findings from these assessments?
Absolutely. It's kind of unique. We see a couple of things, and I may have mentioned it during the presentation. But number one is we typically come in based on some point solution that's being looked for. You may need to replace, one assessment we went in, they wanted to replace the Spec 200 controls that were on a bark-fired boiler. That was our entry point to come in and have a discussion of an assessment. What we found out was that there's some steam header issues, there's some turbine control issues. So typically what we find is there's some surprise. There's something that somebody knows about, but it's just never been contextualized in terms of framing it into a whole modernization plan. So there's normally this one surprise project that jumps out of each one that has some real value to our customers.
Okay, Brian, I did just get one. Does Inventus do modernization consultation for non-Inventus-based DCSs?
Yes.
Great.
Again, it's not an Inventus solution-based approach. We want to talk to our customers about their business strategies and initiatives, and then develop plans for how to move them forward. If the solution is one assessment we did, it was a competitor's DCS. They had some pieces of Inventus equipment elsewhere that we were there talking about as our entry point. And part of it was that, you know what, your competitor DCS has probably got another 5 years, so it's not the time to modernize that now. However, your HMI was getting long in the tooth, so we suggested that that customer move to an Inventus-based HMI that would talk to their existing competitor DCS, and that sometime in the future they would look at migrating that IO.
Okay, and we have time for just one more question, Brian. What does the output of the modernization plan look like?
That varies. It's going to be a high-level roadmap. We tend to look at it as one customer wanted a 5-year plan and a 10-year vision. Another customer wanted a 3-year upgrade plan for their entire plant. The reality is one major chemical customer we did one for last summer, what was neat in presenting our plan to them is the response was, you listened to us and you gave us exactly what we wanted. So we customize our final product to what the customer's needs are. So we start with the customer's strategies and objectives. We address those directly with our solutions. So it's going to be different depending upon each customer, but it's going to be a long-term plan that we will come back and visit year on year.
Okay, great. Well, that's all the time we have for questions. Thank you for submitting those. Thank you again for joining us today. I want to remind everyone of our webinar schedule. We do have one more modernization-themed webinar. Next week's topic is implementing a modern safety lifecycle program. Safety is not an afterthought. You can register for this webinar on iom.inventus.com/modernize. You can also find additional information, including collateral and recordings of previous webinars. I also want to let you know that there are options to connect with us through our social media channels. Follow us on Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, LinkedIn, and we also have an online blogging community. So if you have any questions, please contact Brian Freer. His contact information is posted here. And this concludes our presentation. So thank you again for attending, and have a great day.